This is the Clear Money Talk podcast, offering up creative solutions for your retirement future through education, choice, transparency, and empathy. Now, your host, CEO and founder of Clear Financial Partners, Tim Clairmont, and co-host, Tyler Andrews.
Welcome to Clear Money Talk. My name is Tim Clairmont. I'm your host, the CEO and founder of Clear Financial Partners. And as always, my co-host here, Tyler Andrews, is with me. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you're getting to see us in 4K. We actually upgraded the quality of our cameras. So I'm either saying you're welcome or I'm sorry, however you choose to observe us. So you can see us more clearly now. Tyler, please say hello.
Yeah, hello, listeners. It's good to be in the podcast studio recording another one of these for you guys and be here with Tim. We always have so much fun doing this. I say it all the time. I feel like we're fortunate to get to do this and to get to share the knowledge with all of you listeners out there. So excited to talk about this topic with Tim as normal. He doesn't know what the topic is. Still waiting for Tim to do this for me, to choose a topic, and for me to come into the podcast not knowing what it is. But I digress. Tim, you can take that with a grain of salt or do what you please with that.
It is very much on my radar, and I'm excited to quiz and surprise Tyler by letting him lead one of these podcasts here shortly.
Yeah.
Bandwidth has been a little tight lately for putting those together.
That's okay.
But yeah, we will get to it. I was actually just talking to Tyler this morning as we were driving in to record. I was like, oh no, today's the day we're recording. We're like, I felt uncomfortable because I am wearing a black shirt and a blue blazer, and I've never done that before. I don't understand. Like, I was raised with this belief set that you don't mix black and blue together. You don't want to have black socks with blue shoes or blue socks with black shoes or whatever. And nowadays it just seems like everybody's mixing it up. So I asked Crystal this morning when I got dressed, I said, honey, do I look okay? And she said, yes. And I was like, all right, her opinion's the one that matters to me the most.
Yep.
So like it or not, it is what it is. So I'm here. For those who are only listening, enjoyed listening, and you don't even have to worry about this. You'll probably forget that I'm wearing a black shirt and a blue blazer, but for those on YouTube, you'll see it firsthand.
What if this is a poor listener? They're like, I'm wearing a blue blazer and a black shirt right now.
It was a thing. I just remember getting so much crud. I was in speech and debate in college, and I showed up with black shoes and navy socks, I think, or I think that was the case. And the opposing team probably, frankly, had run out of things to debate me on and decided to give me a hard time about my sock and shoes.
Oh, so I'm sorry. Yeah, that'll stick with you.
Like, all right, fine. I'll wear black socks with my black shoes. Nowadays in Portland, you can see all kinds of mixed stuff out there. So, so many experiences in our life, from our childhood to our teen years to our college years or our 20s and 30s, shape how we feel about so many things going forward in the future. And there's no difference when it comes to money. Your earliest memories of money, when you think about how your parents dealt with money, how you dealt with money as a kid, how your grandparents might have dealt with money, and the impact associated with their lives, has probably had some pretty significant moments for you in terms of how you feel about money, and that's what we give consideration to. That's why it's such an emotional decision when you're trying to decide what to do with your money. It's not just what some computer software says. It is a very personal choice. We all have our own feelings about money, and they're a combination of who we are and what we want out of life and how we feel about everything, and also what we experienced in our upbringing. So,
yeah, I 100% agree with you. You ready to dive in?
Yeah, let's go.
I'm ready, man. We're already in the pool, but let's go to the deep end here. Right. Okay, topic of the day: are you accidentally sabotaging your own wealth? Are you accidentally sabotaging your own wealth?
Okay, yeah. So, it's funny. This reminds me. So, are you accidentally sabotaging your own wealth? This reminds me of an insight. I'm always looking for good, insightful moments. I've been in the business since 1997. So, I've been doing this for, at this point, gosh, coming up on 28 years.
Man.
Long time. I know.
Yeah. Was the internet around back then?
Yeah, kind of. You still can hear that modem beep.
The dial-in tone. Get off the phone. I'm on the internet.
Yeah, back in the day. Yep. No, lots of things have changed since then. But yes, sabotaging your situation. One of the things I realized, many of our clients have a very common problem that they want us to solve. And when I was asked the question of what is the problem that all of your clients suffer from that they want you to solve, most of the time that default response that I believed was running out of money. the clients didn't want to run out of money. And so we would make sure they'd have enough wealth to generate retirement income in an optimal way, keep their lifetime taxation at the legal minimum, and really make sure they were going to have paychecks for the rest of their lives and never have to worry about running out of money. And I realized that was true of many of my clients. In fact, the vast majority of my clients, but not all of my clients. There's a handful of clients who have enough wealth, they're really not worried about running out of money. They know that they're going to be okay. But what everyone is worried about, whether they are extremely wealthy or worried about running out of money, is making a mistake with their money. No one wants to make a mistake with their money. And so this question really resonates for me in that way. It's like, are you accidentally messing up your money? That's a good question. So I'm looking forward to going into maybe some of the common ways that we might make mistakes with our money that we don't even realize we're doing it with. And I have a feeling you probably have maybe some bullets for us that we might be able to explore together.
I do. Yeah, you definitely know me. I came prepared as I like to, but enough room for some flexibility if we need to deviate. I don't know how much of the nerdy, deep, green analytical stuff we'll get into as far as sabotaging and mistakes, but some more surface level things, and we can go deeper if we need to.
Sure.
Does that sound good?
Yeah, it's funny. I know what you mean by the colors. I don't feel like a lot of our listeners probably
maybe
don't.
that's a good opportunity.
Because it's funny when you say nerdy deep green and you use that color green. Green in this case, we don't mean the way that most people would think of the word green, which is
not knowing much,
ignorant, and not as familiar with things.
The opposite, actually, which is funny it works like that.
There's a book that's called Stu Schlackman wrote it. It's called 4 People You Should Know, and there's an insight spectrum survey inside that tests personalities, and we talk about it all the time. The 4 primary personalities being gold, blue, green, and orange, and it's fascinating and fun. If you go to my website clearfp.com and scroll down a little bit, you'll see a little video where I'm teaching for about 4 minutes on this topic and about using emotional intelligence, working with financial advisors. I was speaking to, I was about 60,000 advisors at the time, teaching them this concept. But my point is green, that color. If you may resonate with this. It's the engineers of our world. It's the detail-oriented individuals that ask questions about their questions. And so when Tyler refers to green, he's referring to that personality type that is very, very detail-oriented and has a lot of questions like that. So yes, anyway, just to clarify.
No, that's awesome. Thank you. Regardless if somebody doesn't learn anything about are they sabotaging their wealth, I think they will take that snippet away of the 4 people you should know and all that. So
it's really helpful.
Thank you for talking about that. Okay, talking points. I was thinking these are some of the common areas that most people will see as areas where somebody might be sabotaging their own wealth and not even realizing it. One of them is lifestyle creep and emotional spending. Another is the hidden costs of procrastination. Not having a written financial plan or a financial plan at all, whether written or otherwise, or have some sort of a ensemblance of what that looks like. Overconfidence and the do-it-yourself trap. Neglecting tax and estate planning.
Yeah, that's good.
So ending on a boom with that one, but we'll build up to that one because I know you want to start with that one because it has the word tax in there, and you're like.
Well, there's actually one just kind of simple thing that it may or may not fit into any of those categories.
Yeah.
That just came to me that I feel like is a common mistake that you could be sabotaging your situation. And I know it's hard to not do this, but paying your credit cards off every single month is something that everyone just needs to do. You can't carry credit card debt. And you might think that just paying the minimum or making your payments is good enough, and so you think everything's fine because you're making the payments on your credit card. But the interest rates are so high on credit cards that you are sabotaging your wealth because you're making these regular payments. And ultimately, if you look at how much interest you're paying to the bank or the company that gave you the credit card, you're giving away so much money if you don't pay it off every single month. So if you have any credit cards, pay those off every single month. It's what we often refer to as unsecured debt. Usually, it's a higher interest rate, and that stuff that can really eat away at your net worth.
Yeah.
But let's tackle your list. What was number one?
Lifestyle creep and emotional spending.
Lifestyle creep and emotional spending. So that's one of the ways we can end up with those big credit card debts. Is you have this feeling of like, oh, everything's crummy, like life is short, and all of a sudden you're upset or you're depressed or you're angry, and you decide to use those emotions to say, I'm just going to go buy this thing, and that can have lifetime consequences that you don't see coming. It's a very big expense or something that you haven't set aside money to afford, and you spend money you don't have to buy that thing, and then have that emotional spending moment, and then all of a sudden, you have to make payments on that thing and pay for it 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 times over because you don't pay it off that month. You end up carrying that debt forward for all those years. But it's not just these emotional moments of frustration that can lead to emotional spending. In fact, one of the things I see very, very often, and I mean very underlined, very 3, 4 times, is the love that you have for your kids and your grandkids. And you love them so much that you give away your money to help them and support them in so many ways. And then what you find is a huge portion of your budget is going to your kids and your grandkids, even in their adult years. And as that money is spent, you feel like that's my kid, that's my grandkid. I love them. I want to give them whatever it is that they need, and I don't want them to ever suffer and ever have to, want for anything. And then you come back and you realize that you've taken the oxygen mask off yourself, put it on your kid on the plane, and you don't have enough oxygen left for yourself when the plane is crashing. And that's a common mistake that we see. So just make sure you leave enough for yourself, that you're not going to end up becoming a burden on the kids because you didn't take care of yourself later on. And there's balance. There's balance in life. But yes, emotional spending.
Yeah. I think that'll fall into that category, the emotional spending side of it.
Yep.
And then lifestyle creep. I think most people know what lifestyle creep is. I mean, it's the most common phrase, keeping up with the Joneses, trying to keep up with the neighbor down the street type of decisions. They bought a nice car, I'm going to buy a nice car. They bought a bigger house, I'm going to buy a bigger house. And I'm not just saying that you shouldn't buy those things or do those things and have those joys of life, because those are pleasures that we can treat ourselves with, especially when we've earned them and when the situation calls for it. But if the budget doesn't allow for it, if you're taking on major credit card debt to buy those things, or sacrificing other areas of your life like retirement savings, or focusing on short-term needs for the family, whatever it might be, I think that's where the situation becomes sticky and people run into issues with it. But I'm totally a fan for buying the nice stuff if the budget and everything else calls for it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. No, that's spot on. There's really nothing more to say
No.
about that lifestyle creep. It's well said.
It's a real thing.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a real. Just be aware of it.
Yep.
I think
That's
some people don't even realize that it happens, and they look back and they're like, "Holy moly! Well, 10 years ago was totally different than 10 years now," and I didn't even see those things. Those small changes added up to a whole, grander scheme nowadays.
If you want some really quick math advice on how much money you should spend out of your paycheck,
We would love that.
I'll give you a quick rule of thumb. Here is your absolute maximum amount of money that you should be spending on lifestyle. 80% of your take home. Because you should save 10% of your take home for longer term ideas, and another 10% for shorter term emergency savings and things of that sort. And so if you save at least 10% for the long run and at least 10% for the short-term emergency situations, and then live on the other 80%, which means out of that 80%, you should cover your lifestyle expenses as well as pay off any credit cards every single month. And if you don't have the money to buy the thing and you're not going to be able to pay the credit card off that month, you don't buy the thing. You save up until you have the money to buy the thing, whatever the thing is. But 80% is a good maximum rule of thumb as far as how much you should be living on. And if you can actually live on even less, like maybe 60%, that would be even better, because then you could save more. You can take 20 or 30% of your income and you can save that for down the road. That creates the opportunity for you to then consider retiring earlier, or retiring on a much nicer lifestyle for yourself and reaching financial independence at a time, and giving you other resources for some of those big purchases you might make down the road, like another house, or perhaps paying for kids' college, or even if you've been successful enough, you might pay for your grandkids or even your great grandkids' college. That's a wonderful thing to be able to leave that kind of legacy.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, good with that one?
Yep.
Ready for the next one? Okay, the hidden cost of procrastination. So
So Einstein said the eighth wonder of the world is compound interest.
Yes, he did.
That's an exciting thing when you look at it from that perspective and say, wow, that's really cool. How does that work? And that was one of the things I got so excited about at 21 years old, right out of college, when I was leaning into financial planning for the first time, is I took a financial planning calculator and I realized that there's 5 buttons on there, and you can just put in what the present value of some money is, how much your monthly payments are, a rate of return that you might expect to earn, and a time frame. Maybe it's 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, and then see how big your account's going to get by calculating future value. And everyone can do that with this basic equation that's in a financial planning calculator.
Yeah.
And it's not complicated. It's, once you plug it in, but you realize how impactful it is. I mean, the power of compound interest is massive. Well, that can be very, very, very exciting. But one of the great examples that I was given when I was 21 years old was the person who saves a couple $1,000s a year from 21 to 31 years old for 10 years, and then doesn't save between 31 and 61 for another 30 years, investing in the exact same portfolio, versus person B, they save nothing from 21 to 31, and then they save the same $2,000 a year from 31 to 61 for that 30-year period of time. The second one will have put in 3 times as much money in a nominal value because they saved $2,000 for 30 years versus $2,000 for 10 years. But because of the power of compound interest, the person who started 10 years earlier and then didn't even save a dime the whole time the other person was saving will end up with more money at that same point at age 61 down the road. And that really is the power of compound interest. So procrastination is huge. If you push off even 1 month contributing to that 401k, or taking advantage of the match dollars, or getting your regular contributions going, that's what the banks and those credit card companies know. By you putting off even for 1 month paying that credit card off that month, they get to collect interest from you. And that just erodes your net worth.
Yeah.
The same thing happens if you put off saving that you could have otherwise been investing that money somewhere else. That power of procrastination can be huge.
Yeah. Carpe diem, seize the day. Mm-hmm. The time is now. Mm-hmm. And it's easier to say that than to do it. I think procrastination is human nature to a certain extent, and it's easy to procrastinate because it's usually you're procrastinating a thing, a decision, a change that is uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to start saving if you've never saved before. It's uncomfortable to change jobs if you've never changed jobs before, to start working out if you've never worked out before, to eat healthier. Those things are uncomfortable inherently, and that's why our brain is like, maybe we kick the tires on that, kick the can down the road a little bit. But when it comes specifically to what we're talking about today on the podcast is money, financially related things, the procrastination can really, pay dividends to do it now and to rip the Band-Aid as opposed to not, do it later. And paying dividends is more the analogy talking about it, not actual dividends.
Those are nice too.
Yes, those are nice too.
So as you're hearing this, if you feel motivated by what we're saying, stop the podcast and go enroll in your 401k if you haven't enrolled yet. Take the match dollars, or set up a regular monthly contribution into your Roth IRA or whatever kind of regular savings that you have going on. Take action, because thought and knowledge without action is just a discussion point at a party. If you take action, that's what's going to change your life. And the easiest way to take action, of course, is, if you need somebody to help you, give us a call.
Flip the easy switch.
Yeah,
call us.
503-579-1000. We can schedule a 15-minute clarity call with you and get to know you a little bit and see if we can help you on the right direction. And maybe there's an opportunity to work together, maybe there's not. But either way, we'd love to try to help make sure you're empowering yourself in your journey to achieve your unique vision of happiness.
100%. Also, you mentioned that's just a discussion at a party.
Yeah.
That'd be a fun party to be at.
Yeah,
we're just talking about money and finances, nerding out.
You're so green.
I want to be at that party.
You're so green, Tyler. No, that's funny.
Okay.
All right.
Moving on.
That's a good party for us. It's a nerd party.
That is a great party. Yeah. That's our kind of party right there.
That's good.
Not having a written financial plan, or just a financial plan in general, I think can be sabotaging your wealth. However, I want to approach this one with a little bit of buffer, because I think it still comes back to what we were just talking about, where procrastination can be worse than doing something. And I feel like some people get the deer in the headlights and don't know what to do and they freeze. I still think it's better to do something rather than nothing. And even if you don't have a written financial plan, still doing incremental small things that are benefiting you over the short term and long term are still better than not doing anything. And I think that also falls back to the written financial plans, or having a financial plan in general.
Yep.
It's like, I don't need to have a whole financial plan, but I know I should be contributing to my employer's retirement plan because they have a match, or I know I should probably be contributing to a brokerage account or a Roth IRA because everyone talks about it. It just seems like something I should be doing, but you don't necessarily need to have everything figured out to make those small decisions.
Yep, some people are perfectionists and they feel like they need to see that plan so thoroughly before they take any action. And I appreciate the fact that having a good plan is critical. And so it really is. It's very, very helpful. And I'll talk on a brief analogy with that too. But your point is spot on. I mean, there's some obvious things that are clearly going to help you. And taking the free match dollars at your employer as far as those retirement plan contributions, getting some regular savings going on, contributing to any kind of savings and moving in that direction if you haven't started doing that is key. It's once you've started saving in more significant amounts and you have it in different places, building a more customized plan for your circumstances can make some significant adjustments to your strategy. And that can improve performance, it can decrease taxes, and it can ultimately produce more revenue for you down the road when you go to retire if you make the right decisions. And so that's where the strategy, the plan comes into play. One of the things I think about, Tyler, is I remember hearing a newscast thing just in the last week. So by the time you're listening to this podcast or watching this podcast, it'll probably have been a month or so by the time as far as this reference. But there were a couple of pilots that were flying back to I feel like it was like LA or something, and they fell asleep. And so the two pilots fell asleep on the plane.
Not a commercial airliner, I hope.
Commercial airline. Oh. And they overshot their destination by 2 hours. And so they're asleep. And then they wake up and they overshot the destination by 2 hours. They turn around and they go back and then another 2 hours and then they land. Obviously 4 hours late. I'm sure everybody on the plane is disappointed with that. But
sure.
The point is that you might be running really, really, really hard. But if you're running just a little bit in the wrong direction, you're going to end up missing your exit. You're gonna go down that highway and end up so far down the highway you might have to actually turn around and come back in order to fix your situation. And that's where knowing what your plan looks like and having a good strategy in place, make sure that you're putting all your energy in the right direction and that you have exactly the right exit points as well, whether it's time to land the plane or time to take an exit.
I'm just baffled by the story and your ability to pull things together in these amazing analogies. You're so good at it.
That's how I work.
That's awesome.
My brain works this way. So.
And I'm just happy I wasn't on that flight either.
Yeah,
that's
really
crazy.
That would have been very disappointing.
Yep.
Flight, yes. So what else? What else have we got?
Two more. Overconfidence and the do-it-yourself trap.
Yes.
Which I think I'm totally a fan of DIY if you know how to DIY and you know what you're doing. But I think the problem comes from the overconfidence part of this subtopic that we're talking about, which we see quite often in our industry as we're meeting with new people, talking to people in the community, and just getting to know how different people do different things. Because there's no one way to do what we do. Everything is unique. Everyone does it a little bit differently, and we respect that. And some people do it so differently, and they're so good at it, and it works for them. And I applaud them, and I think that's great. But there's some people that try to do it themselves in that DIY mentality, and they just don't do it right. But they think they're doing it right, and they're missing key things. They're stepping in those potholes. They got a brand new set of shoes on, and they keep stepping in puddles and messing up their shoes. And if we can avoid that and keep those shoes looking crispy, that's what I'm a fan of. And that's me trying to pull those analogies. I like I'm getting better, man.
Shoes,
man. Yeah, it's nice to have a fresh pair of kicks on, right?
Yeah, that's cool.
But I digress on that. But I do know that we have seen time and time again overconfidence when it comes to managing assets and managing money and managing a financial plan, and mistakes can be made that could have been avoided, I guess is what I'm getting to.
It's funny. I don't know if anybody's seen the Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones, the Temple of Doom, and then the third movie, the Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. For me, that was my favorite of the first three. You may argue vehemently with me about that, but fundamentally, there was a moment when Indiana is about to step off this chasm, and he has to take this leap of faith, and then he steps, and all of a sudden, there's this bridge that was perfectly camouflaged with the other side of the cliff, so it looked like there was a chasm, but there was actually a bridge that kind of reached up and caught his feet at that moment. And I think that's such a huge, impactful moment. I think the opposite happens when Tyler's talking about, you get these brand new kicks on, and you're just walking down what looks like a completely normal street, and instead all of a sudden a puddle just materializes right underneath your foot. In that same way that Indiana Jones had a bridge materialize, you have a puddle materialize, and it just nastifies your kicks. So
that's a real thing.
That's a real thing. So we can show you the puddles so you don't step in those. They may be invisible to you, and I think that's the key with this one is that a DIYer, do-it-yourselfer, you don't know what you don't know. It's just not possible. Think of those words for a second. If you've heard it before, great, you already know it. If you haven't heard it before, listen to the words. You don't know what you don't know. And if you don't understand what you're missing out on, then you think you're doing everything great, but you don't know what you don't know. Now, you might think maybe you do know enough and you feel like you've researched it, you've analyzed it, and then you can make those decisions and you're not going to trust anyone else. Maybe you had one of those emotional childhood experiences or emotional even later life experiences where you're like, I don't trust anybody else with my money. That's okay. That's a part of your upbringing. That's part of your experience, part of your life. Yeah. Maybe you have to be a DIY. You just can't trust anyone else. And I'm sorry that whatever it is that happened to you in that way, that's where you need to go. But when somebody spends their entire life, like we have, basically studying this stuff, there's just no way to catch up. I mean, I've been doing this for 28 years, full time, with a passion and a skill that's naturally good at it, and I love it. You wouldn't show up at the NBA finals and say, hey, sit down, whoever your favorite star is, I can do it better because I've been practicing at home. Like, no, that person's got amazing talent. They've been practicing and grinding at that for their entire lifetime. You wouldn't even pretend to shoot that ball or take over the free throw shot or take over the three-pointer or anything like that. Like, why would you think that it's okay to do that with your life savings when you've got people out there that are superstars in this area that could be slam dunking that ball for you instead of you missing the shot, which is what may be happening if you're doing it yourself. And you just don't know what you don't know. And there are a lot of easy shortcuts to convince yourself to rationalize that you know enough. So maybe you are hearing some other things and you're like, oh, those things are bad. Okay, that's just being lazy. If you just assume that a thing is bad because somebody else told you it's bad, you haven't researched it yourself. You haven't really analyzed it to make your own decision to say, what if it wasn't bad?
Yeah.
What if it wasn't bad? Or this thing is good. Well, what if it's not good? Those are the questions you have to ask when you're doing it yourself, and you just really can't completely trust everybody else's answers to those questions to make your decisions, and yet it's so overwhelming. There's so many choices you have to make that you really have to hire somebody or work with somebody or learn so much more so that you can make sure that you know as much as you need to know to make those decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. Long story short, don't airball. Pass it to somebody like us and we'll dunk it for you.
There you go. That's right. Yeah.
Okay, last subtopic is neglecting tax and estate planning. These are two things that a lot of people, especially your DIYers, they don't find very sexy. I mean, it's complicated stuff. So let's avoid the complicated stuff, right? Well, no. The more money you have, the more complex your situation is, the more tax and estate planning really can be one of the more core functions of your entire financial plan. And I know that Tim's itching to start talking about taxes because he loves taxes. But
I have talked about this so long in so many other podcasts that I'm going to try to keep this one tight.
Oh, okay.
We're nearing the end. So
sure.
So fundamentally, when it comes to taxes and estate planning and neglecting all that, just know that taxes are oftentimes your single largest expense. If you look at your total revenue for the year and then you look at how much money you spent on taxes, it could be more. It's probably more than what you spent on your mortgage. It's probably more than what you spent on any other line item. So if you could reduce your tax bill legally to a lesser number, that's that much more money you have in your pocket to do other things with, to save, to invest, to spend and enjoy life. So decreasing your taxes is a big deal. And there are different points of our lives when we have taxation that occurs. And so you have your income taxes every year, of course, but you also have capital gain tax when you go to sell something. So let's be efficient with that. There are ways to minimize that tax. And then there's that inheritance tax at the end when you pass away and you want to pass your wealth on to your family. If you pass it on to your spouse, there's generally an exclusion, so you don't have to worry about that. But as soon as you and your spouse pass away, if you want to pass that down to your kids, and in the state of Oregon, there's no tax on about the first $2 million if you're married, $1 million if you're not. Everything over that is going to get hit with taxes. And the state of Oregon is going to take that chunk right before your kids get that money that you worked so hard your whole life to save up. And there's different levels in different states, and paying attention to all that. Again, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, that's well said. Okay. Should we go back to the top, just the answer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go for it, Tyler.
Should we maybe just, I do one, you do one?
You want to? Sure. That sounds
We'll
good.
tag team it.
Let's
Okay.
do it.
Topic was, are you accidentally sabotaging your own wealth? So the first thing Tim and I talked about was lifestyle creep and emotional spending. So Tim brought up a great point with this one, with the emotional spending. We oftentimes see a lot of people spending a large chunk of their budget, their annual income, their annual revenue, as we've been talking about, on emotional things, whether it's maybe taking care of a child or a grandchild or another family member, a friend or a neighbor, somebody like that, and sacrificing a lot of your own well-being for that other person. And we're not here to say whether you should do that or not, just to be aware of the implications. Don't, in the analogy Tim used, don't take the oxygen mask off your face to give to them, and then you end up suffocating because of that. And, that has its own pros and cons and potential issues. Yeah.
Well, like all the just the answers, there's so much more to listen to in the full version. So what was bullet number 2?
Yep. Bullet number 2. This one is the hidden cost of procrastination.
Yeah, procrastination. So Einstein said the eighth wonder of the world is compound interest. We talked a little bit about that, and that can be very exciting in a positive way as far as growing your wealth. But at the same time, procrastinating has a massive impact in a negative way if you don't start saving right away. So definitely, as you listen to, there's more examples of that we expound on, but fundamentally, do not procrastinate.
Yep. Next was not having a written financial plan. So Tim and I talked about, just because you don't have a written financial plan, something laid out and perfect, ready to go, doesn't mean you shouldn't be doing something. So take action today kind of falls right along the coattails of not procrastinating. So starting to do something is better than not doing anything, and that kind of falls in line with not having a written financial plan. Just because you don't have something perfect doesn't mean you shouldn't be doing something. The next thing we talked about was overconfidence and the do-it-yourself trap.
That's right. And the DIY, again, the key there, you don't know what you don't know. And if you think you know everything, you probably don't. So just make sure you learn everything that you need to know in order to feel good about the decision that you're making. And if you can, trust people to help you. You can leverage their knowledge and all of their years of experience and let them help you slam dunk the ball for yourself. And we talk about that analogy a little bit more in the larger show.
Yep. The last thing we talked about was neglecting tax and estate planning. I'm going to let Tim do this one as well, because this is your niche.
Yeah. So and the key there is that taxes take a big chunk out of your income. It's probably your single largest expense each year, and if you can minimize your taxes legally, that's that much more money that goes into your pocket to help you do other things, save for retirement, save for a big purchase, have a great life. All of those things are there. So legally minimizing taxes at all the points in life when taxes come into play is key. And if you're not paying attention to that, you're maybe overpaying your taxes every year.
Yeah. All right. You ready for some trivia?
That's it. That's just the answer. So what do you get?
Okay.
Hit me with trivia.
All right. You're going to like this one,
Okay.
I think.
Okay.
We'll see.
Okay.
According to the Guinness World Records, who holds the verified record for the longest human lifespan?
I have no idea.
This is a tough one because it's names. So it's like, unless you've been like reading the Guinness World, Book of World Records, how are you going to know?
I
But
know there was somebody in their 120s. I don't think anybody's hit their 130s yet. But and I don't know what the name is. You got multiple choice for me?
yeah, I got multiple choice.
All right. Give me some names.
Janie Calment, Misao Akawa, Jiramon Kimura, probably butchered that, Kane Tanaka.
Wow.
And I will say that they lived to be 122 years old and 164 days.
122 and 164 days.
Yes.
Wow. Very cool.
Yeah.
You know what? They said that I have absolutely no idea of these four, and they say when you don't get punished on a multiple choice test, so it's not going to hurt you, like the SATs can hurt you if you guess the wrong answer, so you're better off leaving it blank. Since there's no consequence to me guessing wrong in this particular situation, they usually suggest going with C. So I'm going to go with C, option number 3.
Okay. It was option A, Janie Calment.
I should have gone with my gut was actually A, and you should trust your gut.
Yeah.
Janine was the right answer. All
Yeah,
right.
that
All right,
is.
So be
So
it.
122 years old.
So
That's
far.
pretty awesome. So far.
I'm shooting for 200 myself.
And we'll see that number, I think, continue to rise over time.
I would agree.
So, yeah.
Well, thank you all very, very much for joining us on Clear Money Talk today. I hope
Yeah.
you enjoyed, those of you watching it on YouTube, the extra clarity that we provided with the 4K camera.
Yeah.
And if you have any money-related questions and we can help you, please call us. That's what we're here for. That's what we do.
Yeah.
503-579-1000, and we'll schedule your clarity call as soon as you'd like to book 15 minutes.
Would love to talk to you. Thanks for tuning in.
Tim Clairmont and Tyler Andrews are investment advisor representatives offering securities and advisory services through Sateri Advisor Networks LLC, a broker, dealer, and registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC. Sateri is under separate ownership from any other named entity. The views depicted in this material are for information purposes only and are not necessarily those of Sateri Advisor Networks LLC. They should not be considered specific advice or recommendations for any individual. For a comprehensive review of your personal situation, always consult with a tax or legal advisor. Neither Sateri Advisor Networks LLC nor any of its representatives may give legal or tax advice. All investing involves risk, including the possible loss of principal. There is no assurance that any investment strategy will be successful. Examples referenced are hypothetical only and do not represent the actual performance of any particular investments. Converting from a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA is a taxable event. A Roth IRA offers tax-free withdrawals on taxable contributions. To qualify for the tax-free and penalty-free withdrawal or earnings, a Roth IRA must be in place for at least 5 tax years, and the distribution must take place after age 59 and a half or due to death, disability, or a first-time home purchase up to a $10,000 lifetime maximum, depending on state law. Roth IRA distributions may be subject to state taxes. Distributions from traditional IRAs and employer-sponsored retirement plans are taxed as ordinary income and, if taken prior to reaching age 59 and a half, may be subject to an additional 10% IRS tax penalty. Investors should consider the investment objectives, risks and charges, and expenses of mutual funds and ETFs carefully before investing. The prospectus, which contains this and other information about the funds and ETFs, can be obtained directly from the company or from your financial professional. The prospectus should be read carefully before investing or sending money. A diversified portfolio does not assure a profit or protect against loss in a declining market. Dollar cost averaging will not guarantee a profit or protect you from loss, but may reduce your average cost per share in a fluctuating market. Investors cannot invest directly in indexes. The performance of any index is not indicative of the performance of any investment and does not take into account the effects of inflation and the fees and expenses associated with investing. Although it is possible to have guaranteed income for life with a fixed annuity, there is no assurance that this income will keep up with inflation. There is a surrender charge imposed generally during the first 5 to 7 years or during the rate guarantee period. There is a surrender charge imposed generally during the first 5 to 7 years that you own the contract. Withdrawals prior to age 59 and a half may result in a 10% IRS tax penalty in addition to any ordinary income tax. The guarantee of the annuity is backed by the financial strength of the underlying insurance company. Investment sub-account values will fluctuate with changes in market conditions. An investment in a variable annuity involves investment risk, including possible loss of principal. Variable annuities are designed for long-term investing. The contract, when redeemed, may be worth more or less than the total amount invested. Variable annuities are subject to insurance-related charges, including mortality and expense charges, administrative fees, and the expenses associated with the underlying subaccounts. Investors should consider the investment objectives, risks, and charges and expenses of the variable annuity carefully before investing. The prospectus contains this and other information about the variable annuity. Contact Clear Financial Partners at info@clearfp.com or 503-579-1000 to obtain a prospectus, which should be read carefully before investing or sending money. The cost and availability of life insurance depend on factors such as age, health, and the type and amount of insurance purchased. Before implementing a strategy involving life insurance, it would be prudent to make sure that you are insurable by having the policy approved. As with most financial decisions, there are expenses associated with the purchase of life insurance. Policies commonly have mortality and expense charges. In addition, if a policy is surrendered prematurely, there may be surrender charges and income tax implications. Clear Financial Partners is located at 15573 Bangi Road, Suite 100, Lake Oswego, Oregon 97035. For more information, please call us at 503-579-1000.